speaker, thank God. Thank you. Lisa Luckett is a social visionary and an activist for kindness and an advocate for gaining wisdom by experiencing life head-on. Her mantra, "Choose Courage," is the foundation of her social vision, reminding us that we are strong, resilient, and have a choice in how we live our lives. Lisa is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and the mother of 3 young adults. As a 9/11 widow, single mother, and breast cancer survivor, she knows the value of life's struggles and sees the light in every silver lining in every situation. She recognizes that life's lessons are a grace that lie within the struggle. Lisa is the founder of Cosmina Enlightened Living. Cosmina is a lifestyle brand and a social movement based on the foundation elements of warmth, comfort, care, consideration, grace, and decency. Quite simply, Cosmina means kindness. She brings her vast life experience and wisdom gained from dissecting personal traumas, events, and life situations to better understand her world and the people in it. Please help me in warmly welcoming Lisa Luckett.
Thank you, guys. It's so nice to be here. So Hunter and I ran into each other on the lacrosse field on the sidelines, and I told him about the book I had just written. And it's because of Hunter that he brought my story to Mr. Ganang, and I cannot thank you both enough for giving me the opportunity to be here today. So there's no coincidence that I'm here at Taft with you guys. It's because you are the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. You are the future leaders of our world. The education, the privilege of this education will open doors for you. It's going to give you opportunities to actually truly make a difference in this world. And I'm not talking about money and power, status, or job titles. What I'm talking about is emotional leadership that we desperately need in our world today. So what I'm hoping I can inspire you to do is join me in becoming a voice of reason in the chaos. So on September 11th, 2001, the 6th formers here and maybe a few of the 5th formers were babies. But the rest of you probably weren't born yet. So you are the first generation to live a complete generation to live in a post-9/11 world. Makes you different. Now, at this point in the game, I want to make sure that if there's someone here who's had a personal experience, who's lost someone in 9/11, that if this is too sensitive, you won't offend me if you need to step out. Because this is a sensitive subject. We're a little desensitized in our culture, so we need to be aware of sensitivities around each other. So to give you my story, a little quick background. My husband, Teddy, who was the love of my life, worked on the 105th floor of the North Tower, 2 stories from the top. And the North Tower was the one that was hit first. My children, Jen, Billy, and Timmy, were then 7, 4, and 4 months. So they're in your wheelhouse. Within moments of the attacks, all I could think about was protecting my kids. Because of the shock, I was in this heightened state of awareness. And I knew, I had this intuitive knowing to just trust myself. Because I could see that the world as we knew it had changed forever. All bets were off, all the rules were broken, and no one would know what to do. In that moment, my warrior self showed up. And I determined that I would not let Teddy and all the others die in vain. Because if I did, then the terrorists would win. If I didn't do that, the terrorists would win. And that was unacceptable to me. It's still unacceptable to me. So I see 9/11 as the equivalent of having every emotional bone in your body broken simultaneously. You would go to the doctor for your physical bones. So I went to the doctor for my mind. There I studied the relationships in my life, my experiences, the events, macro to micro, personal to cultural, local to global, and I found out the whys of many, many things. The book that I've written, let me back up. So what I didn't realize when I went into this time was that I was about to embark on the most fantastic journey of self-discovery that I could ever imagine, and that it would ultimately bring me here to you today. So this summer, I released my first book. It's the first of 3 to explain this big concept. And it's a memoir, and it's called The Light in 9/11, Shocked by Kindness, Healed by Love. And while it's founded in 9/11, it's not a book about 9/11. It's a book about how 9/11 became the catalyst for me to experience remarkable personal growth. It's a book about choosing to see the light, the lessons in your struggles, and the remarkable healing power of kindness. In the book, I talk about an analogy that helped me explain the chaos and the insanity that ensued in the days, weeks, and months that followed 9/11. I could see in my mind's eye a stagecoach from an old Western film barreling down a mountainside, out of control, because the driver had let go of the reins. It's my hope today to get you guys to pick up the reins, to pull them back and start to slow us down. So 2 questions emerged from my studies. Why were we so emotionally unprepared to handle 9/11 as a culture? And where was all the wise counsel to get us through it? So in order to talk about this, we have to back up to the core problem, which is fear. Fear is the underlying energy in the world today. But fear has always been the underlying energy because we are human, and it is a primal urge. So the quote, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself," was said by who? History majors. FDR, right? Franklin Delano Roosevelt was his first term in office in 1933. He was actually the only president elected, he served 3 terms, he was elected to a 4th term before they changed the rules. But he saw this country through one of its darkest periods, the depths of the Depression through the beginning of our participation in World War II. So interestingly, not only was he clearly wise, but he led from a wheelchair. He also was married to Eleanor Roosevelt, who was one of the leading women, probably the original feminist. So this was the ultimate power couple here, but they were so wise, and we were so fortunate to have them. In FDR's inaugural address in January of 1933, it was the depths of the Depression, which started in 29, as you know. This paragraph is the first paragraph in his address, and it applies to today. "This great nation will endure, as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes." So applied to today, we continue to spin in emotional circles and seem unable to move forward as a culture because of fear. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to anger. Anger leads to suffering. Does anybody know who said that? Yoda, right. All right, so Yoda. He was 900 years old, so that's a lot of life experience. Here's the thing about fear. So fear is imaginary. It's not real. You conjure fear in your mind. It comes from thoughts of the future or thoughts of the past. Thoughts of the future bring anxiety. Oh my gosh, am I going to get into that school? Are my parents going to be angry that I got a bad grade? Am I ever going to get a job? Thoughts of the past, regret, shame, loss. What did I do? I did it wrong. Oh my gosh, I'll never get it back. We can't do anything about the future or the past. All we can do is stay in the present moment. That is the only thing we can control. So 17 years ago, 17 years post 9/11, What happened? Why does it feel like we're so out of control? So my theory is that the fear of terrorism that 9/11 brought instantaneously, being the first attack on American soil, on the 48 continental, contiguous states. Pearl Harbor in the Pacific Ocean was World War II, and it was always, kind of brought into parallel with 9/11. But 9/11 was the first time we were really hit hard here. That terrorism lodged itself into the American population at a cellular level. And while the first 2 years was this amazing showing of grace and community and humanity and patriotism and connection, social walls came down, people were unified. A couple years passed and we sealed over. A little further down that fear spectrum, and that's where we've been. Part of the problem is that it's all about timing, right? So the internet was just gaining traction in the early 90s, as was 24-hour news. So 9/11 actually opened the world because it gave us a global perspective, right? We went from being a national conversation to a global conversation as a result of the events of 9/11. Now when the news seeks stories, it's looking at a global world. So of course it's going to seem like the world is coming to an end. But the truth is the world is enormous. And remember something about the news. I was in radio advertising for 15 years in New York. And I am here to tell you that the news media is not a community service. It is not looking out for your best interest. The media is here for ratings, because ratings are money. And now, because of the explosion of 9/11, it became a feeding frenzy of fear. And that continues to be perpetuated. And really the adult population is pretty addicted to the cortisol rush of fear, which keeps getting fed. So what if, when the Twin Towers fell, they created an emotional centrifugal force that began to spin, and from which we are still spinning today? So why are we so reactive? Our American culture suffers from national adolescence. We are young. We have a plethora of knowledge, but we don't have wisdom. You guys are teenagers. It is age appropriate for you. You are adolescent. It is age appropriate for you to react when something happens, because you haven't been on the planet long enough to know that given enough time, everything will be okay. We as a culture need to recognize that we're in that same position and slow down to study our experiences to find that wisdom. Back to the question. So why were we so emotionally unprepared to handle 9/11? When I was studying this, I had this image of a three-legged stool. This is the best clip art off the internet I could get. So mind, body, spirit, let's make that intellect, physical fitness, and emotional wellness. American society and our educational system has focused exclusively on intellect, academics, commerce, physical fitness. When students are getting 1600s on their SATs and 4.0s on a regular basis, and they can't get into the schools of their choice, have we not superserved academics? When athletes have to take steroids to compete in the Olympics and professional sports, have we not superserved physical fitness? But an emotional education has been neglected. We've done nothing for the emotional leg. So on 9/11, we tipped over. We tipped over due to a lack of emotional knowledge, education, confidence, because we haven't taken time to evaluate our life experience and gain the wisdom to know how to navigate the next thing. We have the choice to set that stool upright again. We have the choice to become wiser and more emotionally intelligent. We can be less reactive. That's what happens when you have experience and wisdom. You can stay calmer. So we can come into balance and stop spinning, but it's going to be up to you. The adult world is spinning and spinning and spinning because our world went from being innocent and calm to terroristic and fearful. And we don't know what to do with that. And our old habits and our old systems are all breaking down. The government, religious organizations, corporate America. We were raised that you would respected authority at all costs. You have been raised to question. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. You have been allowed to use more of an intuitive knowing, and that is our future. That you guys learn to trust yourselves and look inside for your answers, not outside where my generation looks. Here's all the validation. Here's where here's where my love is. Here's where I'm going to be. No, it comes from the inside out, which is where you guys are. So there's always been this generation gap between all generations. You, however, are the one that's the first one that's very different, and because of our favorite word, right? Technology. So that linear versus exponential, the parent generation is linear. You guys are exponential. The 20th century was 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The 21st century is 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Things are speeding up because of technology. So could the parents of today do what they ask you to do in school and in sports? I'm certain I couldn't pass high school now. The question is, why are we pushing so hard? Where are we going? You know, what are we missing? And in talking about this, putting this together for you guys, it dawned on me why. It dawned on me there is a purpose to this. What if all of this has been setting you up so that you could shape the world that you want sooner than later? What if you had a world of love, connection, peace, balance, equality, fairness, harmony, environmental care, forgiveness, beauty? How would that feel? Is that something that would be good? Yeah? I know I'd like it a lot better. The choice is yours, but it's going to take a little awareness. It's going to take choosing to be a voice of reason in the chaos. Reason versus reaction. Reason versus reaction. You can choose how to see things. Now, social change takes time. Nothing, and we live in this world of instant gratification because of our technology. So, understanding that it takes 20 years to really create a social movement. But you have to start today. Now, if you think the world's okay this way and you like it spinning and that's fine, don't do anything. And you'll have the same you'll have the same life in 20 years. But if you want some change, if you feel like it should be different, which I'm pretty much assuming you do, then you just have to start now by choosing to look at things differently. How do you start? You start by calming down. We cannot make good decisions when we're reacting. We cannot think when we're spinning. Strike when the iron is cold. Don't wait, don't react. Be calm, calm down, sleep on it, take time. We always do better when we're calm. So this is going to introduce a new concept that I've been talking to my daughter about, who's in her career, and she's in sales. And I'm introducing her to the term of managing up. So in her case, she's in a sales organization. Her manager is 27, she's 24. The manager doesn't know a whole lot, but she's causing Jennifer difficulties for various reasons, valid and not. So Jennifer has to learn to manage up. She's gonna have to learn to manage her manager. And you're gonna take this out into the world and do the same thing. Because people are people. And everybody goes into the world with their best intentions, but it's a matter of working together. It doesn't go in one direction, top to bottom. It's up to you guys to manage bottom up. So it's a collaborative. You are naturally more collaborative than we ever were. You guys have a much more, you don't see different, you're much more embracing of difference. You are wired differently than we are. You are in a great position to change and do this. So it is going to take some effort. But you are so good at effort, this should not be a problem. Part of it is going to be, a big part, is applying self-discipline, which I can tell you the adults in my world have lost track of. And you have a lot of discipline about your studies, so keep going with that. But it's going to mean putting your phone down. Everyone is addicted. Parents can't point their fingers at you that you're addicted. They're just as addicted as you are. But they're so caught up in the spinning noise, they can't hear anything. You guys can hear me. You're still pliable. Your minds have neuroplasticity, right? They can learn. You're not shaped and formed yet. Adults are crusted over. The fear is so big. The spin is so vast. You can show them by managing up. You can show them by being the role model in how to do this. Be the role model in how to live your life. Not by following people through social media, but by living your life. So the key being to stay in the present moment, because this is what life is about. It's about smelling the roses, smelling the coffee, and getting the sensory input from being on the planet. It's a beautiful gift to be here as a human. So choose. It's a choice. Choose to become a voice of reason in the chaos. Start today. Be the change you want to see in the world. Who said that? Gandhi. So be a voice of reason in the chaos. And thank you very much for having me.